China's Qingdao city has begun its second day of mass virus testing. Medical teams from other areas have reportedly been sent in to help, all for just 12 confirmed infections. That's after 600 million people traveled across the country for China's Golden Week holiday earlier this month. It was a major boost for the economy despite concerns about increased virus spread. China resumed its broadcasts of NBA games. That's after an almost year-long suspension. China, Cuba, and Russia are vying for top seats at the UN Human Rights Council. UN Watch compared it to allowing arsonists to join the fire brigade. And Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping visited a Navy base, telling troops to be ready. This as the Taiwanese president toured a radar station which monitors missiles from nearby nations. The U.S. is moving forward with more weapon sales to Taiwan. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. First, we take a look at the CCP virus outbreak in China. 9 million people are to be tested in an eastern Chinese city, with the official's number of existing cases reported at 12. But citizens have doubts about this.
Within 5 days, 9 million residents of Qingdao City are to undergo testing for the CCP virus. Neighborhoods are under semi-lockdown, where only people with a green health tracking record can enter or leave. But as of Monday, the municipal authorities had announced just 12 existing cases, with 6 of them showing symptoms and 6 that were asymptomatic. Mr. Li, a Qingdao citizen, told us he believes the authorities are not reporting all of the cases.
The specific data, as you know, is not clear. The official figure is not high. There are not many cases. But we know what is going on. That is enough.
A hospital in Qingdao was closed and another one was designated as a backup hospital for virus treatment. All outpatient and emergency departments were also closed since the announcement. A netizen referring to these actions criticized the Chinese regime for having encouraged people to travel during the National Day holiday week earlier this month. Within 8 days, more than 600 million people were traveling across China. He wrote on social media, "It seems that the outbreak is very serious, or else a hospital would not be designated as a backup hospital. Everyone must pay attention to this. To help the economy, the Chinese Communist Party let people go to carnivals during the national holiday week, and it is the people who will suffer." Mr. Tai from Qingdao said he feels hatred towards the communist regime for lying about the figures.
Anyway, the Communist Party's data is basically unreliable. Beijing doesn't allow anyone from Qingdao to enter the city. All people who have close contacts with Qingdao people have to be reported. I'm not afraid of death. I just hate this government, this system. This is what this nation is all about: accelerated decline, loss of faith, loss of morality, and suffering our own fate as a result.
Several provinces and cities around Qingdao have issued a travel warning this weekend, reminding residents to stay clear of the city. An online video shows that a medical team from Longnan of Gansu province went to Qingdao to assist local medical staff fighting the epidemic. Longnan is 1,000 miles away from Qingdao. NTD News.
Now we turn to the after effects of China's Golden Week holiday, otherwise known as China's week-long National Day holiday. It marks the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP's, rise to power. Days after the holiday's conclusion, authorities in Qingdao City have begun mass virus testing its 9 million residents, citing a jump in CCP virus cases. Back in late September, authorities in Qingdao reported 2 cases of the CCP virus. They were found just before the start of the holiday, when hundreds of millions of people were expected to travel across the country. And tourism spending that comes with it usually gives the local economy a boost. Qingdao is a port in China's eastern Shandong province. It's a popular tourist destination. Days before the Golden Week holiday, a top official was questioned about whether it was safe to travel to Qingdao. The official replied that Qingdao remains a low-risk region and people can freely travel there. The official works for Shandong Province's Center for Disease Control and Prevention. The agency was previously found to have been under-reporting virus cases this February. That's according to internal documents obtained by NTD. On February 18th, 52 patients in Shandong tested positive, but Shandong CDC reported only 1 new infection. And on February 21st, 59 new cases were confirmed. The agency reported 2 of them. Following the official's remarks, Qingdao saw nearly 4.5 million tourists during the week-long holiday. Around the same time, local event companies also held a large-scale music festival. People packed the event space. The festival was only half an hour's drive from where the 2 virus cases were discovered. Also on the virus front, a vaccine developed by China was reportedly allowed for emergency use this summer by the country's authorities. But the drug had yet to complete large-scale clinical trials and safety testing. The news has sparked backlash among some Chinese patients, particularly those whose children became ill after taking vaccines made in China. He Fangmei is the mother of a child vaccine victim from Henan province. Her daughter was paralyzed after receiving the DPT vaccine 2 years ago. He Fangmei disappeared last Friday after she reportedly poured paint onto local government property. She had previously petitioned and protested against the use of experimental vaccines and demanded that those involved be held accountable. She's also asked to be reimbursed for her daughter's medical treatment, but was instead repeatedly arrested by local authorities. In a social media post from Friday, He Fangmei stated that she doused the local government's door plates with ink. The region's Public Security Bureau originally sought to detain her for 10 days, but she was released sooner due to being pregnant. Also on social media, she wrote that authorities refused to take responsibility for her daughter's vaccine-inflicted disability. She explained that local police monitored her 24 hours a day and prevented her from going to Beijing, where her daughter received medical treatment. As a result, she decided to make a statement by splashing paint on the local government door plate. Now we take a look at a vaccine candidate developed outside China. Johnson & Johnson said it had temporarily paused its vaccine clinical trials due to an unexplained illness in a study participant. The company said the case is being reviewed and evaluated by an independent data and safety monitoring board, as well as the company's clinical and safety physicians.
Johnson & Johnson announced Monday it's temporarily paused trials for a COVID-19 vaccine after a participant in the study fell ill for unknown reasons. The news delays one of the highest-profile efforts to contain the global pandemic, and it's another major setback for the COVID-19 vaccine race after AstraZeneca paused late-stage trials of its vaccine candidate last month, also due to unexplained illness in a trial participant. Johnson & Johnson said in a statement that their participant's illness is being reviewed and evaluated by an independent monitoring board, as well as the company's clinical and safety physicians. The company said that the current study pause in giving doses of the vaccine was different from a regulatory hold required by health authorities. It added that such pauses are normal in big trials, which can include tens of thousands of people. J&J had kicked off its final 60,000-person trial just last month, the results of which were expected by the end of this year or early 2021. Johnson & Johnson declined to elaborate on the participant's illness due to privacy concerns, but the company says that some participants in studies get placebos, and it can be unclear whether a person suffering a serious illness in a clinical trial received a placebo or the treatment.
Opinions differ on the effects of controlling the virus through locking a whole city down. An official at the World Health Organization said lockdown shouldn't be the primary way to control the virus. He told UK media outlet The Spectator last Thursday that lockdown should only be used to regroup resources and protect exhausted health workers.
And so we really do appeal to all world leaders. Stop using lockdown as your primary control method. Develop better systems for doing it. Work together and learn from each other. But remember, lockdowns just have one consequence that you must never, ever belittle, and that is making poor people an awful lot poorer.
The WHO estimates the lockdown impact on the global food supply chain could cause up to 130 million more people to go hungry in 2020. Nabarro's statement was echoed by 22,000 scientists. They signed a petition against lockdown measures. NTD reporter Kevin Hogan spoke with one of them.
There are much, much smarter ways to do it. Why aren't we adopting those strategies? Why have we continued these lockdowns that cause so much harm?
The professor says we must protect the elderly who are vulnerable while letting others live their lives. China's biggest state-run TV station is resuming its broadcasts of NBA games this October. That's after an almost year-long suspension. The station cites the reversal as a response to viewer requests. But some are questioning whether the move has another motivation.
After almost a year of blocking the NBA, China Central Television, or CCTV, resumed broadcasting pro basketball on Saturday. Last October, General Manager of the Houston Rockets, Daryl Morey, expressed support on Twitter for Hong Kong's anti-extradition protests, writing, "Fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong." His comment immediately triggered the NBA's biggest business crisis ever in China. Many Chinese media platforms, including the CCTV Sports Channel and Tencent Sports, suspended their NBA preseason broadcast schedules. A number of Chinese companies and institutions withdrew their investments, and many e-commerce platforms also removed NBA merchandise, all in an attempt to force Morey to apologize. According to the Chicago Tribune, the Chinese market accounts for 10% of the NBA's total annual revenue. Beijing's revenge efforts spurred huge losses for the NBA revenue. Some NBA celebrities like James Harden apologized to China. The NBA also made an official statement calling Morey's comments inappropriate. But Morey refused to apologize. His hardline stance soon prompted a reply from the NBA president Adam Silver, who sided with Morey, citing freedom of speech. Beijing's actions have sparked disapproval from the U.S. Vice President Mike Pence. Senator Marco Rubio and other politicians condemned the regime's attempt to stifle free speech. China's NBA ban continued to worsen until its recent reversal. Adam Silver expressed via CNN that the association would continue to promote the NBA's cooperation with China. He added the NBA is exporting American values to China. University of South Carolina economics professor Frank Tian-Xie sheds light on China's apparent backpedaling.
It's unknown what deal they made, but there must be some kind of compromise with the CCP. China has a huge number of fans, and some top CCP officials are also involved. What's more, the CCP is now facing challenges from almost all directions, and it needs to create an atmosphere that it can use as a bargaining chip for so-called peace.
Some netizens suspect China's decision to resume NBA broadcasts is tied to an internal power shift. NBA China's board of directors recently appointed Michael Ma as the chief executive officer of the China branch. His father is known as the godfather of CCTV-5, the CCTV sports channel. U.S.-based independent scholar Ge Bidong points out the Chinese regime's totalitarian system is based on a rule of man, and as a result often reflects the will of those in power. He posed that Beijing's shift from NBA suspension to resumption could be due to CCP leaders changing their minds.
Now we take a look at China's economy. China's Premier Li Keqiang said on Monday that the domestic and foreign environment in China remains complex and uncertain. Li urged that authorities governing at the levels must insist on tightening their belts. Li said this at a visual symposium about the economic situation on Monday, with governors of multiple provinces among the attendees. This is not the first time that Li mentioned tightening one's belt. In May, at China's most important political event, the National People's Congress of the Communist Party, Li emphasized the same point, which he then repeated again in July. In May, he also revealed that the average monthly income of 600 million people in China is less than $150. That is almost half of China's population. Li's speech on Monday also showed Li doesn't agree with the CCP's leader Xi Jinping's strategy on economics. Li urged further opening up, implementing policies to stabilize foreign trade and foreign investment, and to expand export. But Xi Jinping is promoting an internal circular economy, pointing out the direction for expanding domestic consumption, indicating less dependence on foreign trade and exports. Under totalitarian rule in China, it is rare for the premier minister to say something publicly that is not in line with the head of the CCP. But this year, this has already happened several times, indicating that different voices within the party are getting stronger. The U.S.-China trade war and the pandemic has hit China's economy severely and has caused many foreign companies to withdraw from China or gradually transfer their production lines overseas. Reports from across China showed the unemployment rate spiked. China did not set a GDP growth target this year. Now we turn to Chaozhou City in southern China's Guangdong province. That's where Chinese Communist Party head Xi Jinping made an appearance on Monday and Tuesday. A number of regime officials accompanied him, including the director of the CCP's central office, the deputy prime minister, the minister of the CCP Central Organization, and the governor and CCP secretary of Guangdong province. None were seen wearing masks. Nearby security staff also appeared maskless. But a video commemorating Xi's visit has sparked questions online, particularly about the welcome crowd that gathered to meet them. Some netizens pointed out that in the video, the innermost ring of people surrounding Xi are all middle-aged women. Some say these people aren't really residents, but arranged officials from different levels of the regime instead. One comment likened the crowd's cheers to those of North Koreans welcoming Kim Jong-un. Other netizens noticed that details along the street appear odd. For instance, not a single residential window is open along the entire street. Some conclude that could only be possible if the scene was arranged beforehand. Some locals in the area have also complained about traffic patterns caused by roadblocks. According to online media outlet Secret China, the day of Xi Jinping's visit to Chaozhou, the entire city was emptied by authorities. One netizen was questioned by police after posting his disapproval online. His comment was in reply to a WeChat post detailing Xi's visit. It's unknown if the man will face punishment. But the local visit in Chaozhou wasn't the only stop on Xi Jinping's summer tour. On Tuesday morning, he also inspected the city's Marine Corps base. The Chinese city is often seen as a front line to Taiwan. The visit comes as military tensions between mainland China and the democratic island are on the rise. According to a state media report, Xi asked the troops to put all their thoughts and energy into preparing for battle and to maintain a high state of readiness. He told the soldiers to take responsibility for safeguarding the country's sovereignty and to adhere to what he called the absolute leadership of the Communist Party. On the other side of the Taiwan Strait, the Taiwanese president is also on a tour. On Tuesday, Tsai Ing-wen visited a radar station. Taiwanese state media said the visit is of strategic importance. China has frequently sent jets and bombers into the Taiwan Strait in recent months. The Laysan radar station monitors East Asia and grasps all airborne information, such as missiles and satellites. Tsai also brought hot pot to the air defense company guarding the station. At the same time, the White House is moving ahead with 3 sales of advanced weapons to Taiwan. That's according to Reuters. The sales are now awaiting for Congress's approval, where bipartisan support for Taiwan is growing. Taipei officials say they haven't yet received formal notice from the U.S., but will inform the public when they do.
The military threat we're receiving from the Chinese Communist Party is getting worse and worse, but the U.S. government has continued to provide us with defensive weapons in accordance with the 6 Assurances and the Taiwan Relations Act, for which we are grateful to the U.S. government.
Among the potential sale highlights is a missile that can be fired from a location beyond the reach of China's air defense system. The arms sales come as U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien last week advised Taiwan to invest more in its military. The Chinese embassy is urging Washington to stop all arms sales to and military ties with Taiwan. Washington is reportedly considering restrictions for a Chinese payment giant. It would seek to prevent American users' financial data from falling into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party should the company expand in the U.S. NTD's Juliet Song reports.
The Trump administration is reportedly weighing restrictions on a Chinese payment giant. Details are still limited, but the concern is as the Chinese payment giant grows and eats into the U.S. market, American users' financial data could be accessed by the Chinese Communist Party. Chinese digital payment giant Ant Group has close ties with the communist regime. It also dominates China's mobile payment industry. The company owns one of China's most popular payment apps, Alipay. It's used by 900 million Chinese people. That's almost 70% of China's population. Ant Group has limited presence in the United States. Some say it'll surge in a new market. The mobile payment industry is still developing in the U.S., but Ant Group is a player with decades of experience. It's already started making moves. Last year, one of the largest pharmacy chains in the U.S., Walgreens, started accepting Alipay. And in 2018, Ant Group tried to acquire a U.S. digital payment company, MoneyGram. The deal would allow the Chinese company to access all of MoneyGram's user data, including information that belongs to military members. But Washington killed the merger, citing national security concerns. The problem with Ant Group is similar to that of TikTok. They're both owned by Chinese companies. And Chinese law requires companies to hand over user data if the regime requests it. Ant Group founder Jack Ma previously pledged loyalty to the communist regime. In 2017, he said, "As long as the country needs it, the company is ready to dedicate Alipay to the country at any time." Ant Group also has a problematic past. In 2018, China's internet regulators criticized the company for violating user privacy. They said Ant Group's Alipay app enrolled its users into a credit score system without telling them, and that the move would give the company access to users' financial data and the right to share it with third parties. Ant Group uses facial recognition in its payment systems. It also helped China build a social credit system, which tracks citizens' movements and rates them based on their behavior. The company is now preparing for what could be the largest initial public offering, or IPO, in history. IPO is a way for companies to raise funds by selling stock to the public, and Ant Group is looking to rake in $35 billion. Juliet Song, NTD News.
Former UK Conservative leader called for a national security review of British businesses. He's concerned about the growing economic influence of China. We speak to a foreign policy expert to get their view.
A former UK Conservative leader wants the British government to vet British businesses for national security risks. He's concerned about China's growing economic influence. We spoke with a foreign policy expert, Sam Armstrong.
While the UK does have powers to vet the acquisitions of UK companies in certain national security grounds, those powers don't go far enough. The government have admitted that, which is why they're proposing to bring in further legislation.
He says UK law works well for clear security threats, but not so in other areas where there might be a threat. He says the global blood plasma market is an area of concern. It's one of the most promising areas of therapeutics for COVID-related illnesses. BPL Group, Britain's leading supplier of blood plasma, was bought by a Chinese investment firm in 2016.
And we now are in a situation in which the global blood plasma markets have seen enormous control by Chinese companies and the world's largest exporter of certain blood products.
He says that China's stranglehold on the global supply of essential medicines is a security risk. He says that the US is ahead of this problem because they have a committee on foreign investment. He says that's what the UK needs.
China, Cuba, and Russia are vying for top seats in the UN Human Rights Council. The committee is set to vote on adding China, Russia, Cuba, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Uzbekistan to its Human Rights Council. There are 15 openings to fill in 5 regions: Africa, the Asia Pacific, Eastern Europe, Latin America, and Western Europe. Each will serve 3-year terms starting next year. The UN Watch Group issued a report opposing the election of those 6 countries, calling them unqualified due to their poor human rights records. The report says 7 are questionable and only 2 are qualified: France and the United Kingdom. The executive director of the UN Watch equated the country's leaders to dictators and compared electing them as human rights judges to turning arsonists into a fire brigade. He cited China's abuses against the Uyghur Muslim ethnic group, Saudi Arabia's nearly 200 executions last year, Russia assassinating journalists, and called Cuba a police state. Head of Canada-based human rights group Erwin Kotler said electing human rights violators indulges the very culture of impunity it's supposed to combat. The U.S. withdrew in 2018. Then U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, accused the Council of being hypocritical and self-serving. And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.